Köszönöm szépen. Jó estét kívánok, kedves hölgyeim és uraim! Ez a hibrid programjainknak az átka, hogy egyszerre megy online és egyszerre helyben, de nagyon örülünk mindenkinek, aki itt van most velünk. I will have to switch to English because we advertise tonight's program in English. Hungarian is a very beautiful language, but it's not a very easy language. On the other hand, so I will not expect all of you to necessarily speak it. My name is Tamás Iván Kovács. I'm the ambassador of Hungary accredited to Belgium and Luxembourg, and it is my really distinct honor to be here with you. And you see that the program is so important that I have my entire family, my wife, who is a member of the distinguished group of three who established the Science Club several years ago, which has really blossomed into a very beautiful, very nice initiative that our institute is, of course, very happy to provide a place to. I'm also very happy to announce that although we had a very nice classical musical concert with master pianist János Balázs at Bozar, just a few days ago, when was it? Tuesday, I think. This is officially the first program of the cultural season. We were lucky to be able to open our Visegrad 4 presidency back here in the beginning of July, but for this cultural season, this is the first program that we have. And I think it is quite exceptional that we open the cultural season with a scientific lecture. However, this only underlines how important it is for us to collaborate with the Belgian Club of Hungarian Scientists and to promote new researchers, new discoveries, new innovations, and Hungarian scientists in general to be portrayed and to be shown at our Cultural Institute, which, as Adrian mentioned, was renamed for the entire network, the very well-known Liszt Institute, Liszt name. Tonight's lecture presents the story of Renaissance Buda in its full glory and the Kingdom of Hungary that welcomed the Brussels-born Hungarian princess, the future Mary of Hungary, when she married Hungarian King Louis II. Mary forged a strong bond between Belgium and Hungary, meaning there was no Belgium at that time, but still the connection is still very vivid, so much so that if you attend Omegang, which is a beautiful medieval procession in downtown Brussels, you see, of course, the Hungarian flag during that procession. And these strong bonds were so strong, in fact, that that led to the participation of Flemish and Walloon troops in the siege of Buda, and centuries later to the creation of the Buda Bridge in Brussels. Maybe my older son would know what bus line has the name of Buda on it, but it's actually quite nice to see that there is a bus running in the STID network that carries the beautiful name of my hometown, my birth town, at least in part. And our lecturer this evening is Gabriella Wittlinger, who holds a master's degree in history and teaching from the University of Szeged, Hungary. After her studies, she worked in the competitive sector at Erste Bank and later at K&H Bank, which you probably know is owned by the Belgian KBC and is the largest foreign-owned bank in Hungary. Gabriella moved to London and then to Brussels, and this is where she became the mother of two children and where, in 2017, she set up the so-called Borderless History Project. In Hungarian it sounds even better, so I cannot resist the temptation to share with you Határtalan Történelem. And Határtalan Történelem, Borderless History, teaches, obviously, history and running activities for Hungarian children abroad, regardless of borders. She also organizes cultural events and is the author and editor of the publication of the Liszt Institute Brussels, focusing on the Belgian-Hungarian historical relations. The book will appear on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between the two countries. And here, again, I cannot resist the temptation to share with you that, of course, we at the embassy and here at the Institute are very excited about the potential what this year will bring us. It was in 1922, the 20th of February, when the first Hungarian envoy has arrived to Brussels from our Paris mission, and of course it was a nobleman who got this job. Of course, Hungary had diplomatic relations with the Kingdom of Belgium before, but it was the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. And after the First World War peace treaty system and the Versailles peace treaty system, the new Hungary had to enter into diplomatic relations. And that happened roughly 100 years ago. And if you think of it, even in the age of a country that's more than 1,000 years old, 100 years is a significant chapter. And we are celebrating the chapter with many events, dressing monarch and peace, having a memorial plaque on the building of the first Hungarian embassy, having many cultural programs and concerts here at the Institute and also at the embassy. Part of this drive is having two excellent publications, one that focuses on the diplomatic history part, and the other is where Gabriela Wittlinger is a key player, since this is the book that I referred in my speech, and I'm really looking forward to read that book. But it's also easy to locate ourselves in Brussels, which is also the seat of History Without Borders and of Gabriela's life. The streets of Brussels, as you know it, are full of history, from its Roman beginnings to the medieval city walls that pop up in the most unexpected places, such as the one behind me, to the stumbling blocks of the 20th century memories that can be found in the doorways of houses. Belgium is a country that, due to its specific past, is part of the history of many European countries. And of course, besides the widely known Spanish and French histories, it is also part of the history of my country, Hungary. In tonight's lecture, Gabriela will talk about this relationship and the part of the common history in relation to the 16th and the 17th centuries to highlight the rich and varied relationship of the two regions in this period. She will also present the role played by Mary of Hungary in the development of this 20th century industrial bridge in Belgium and the decisive battle in the Hungarian history in the 17th century. I wish you an excellent evening. Jó szórakozást kívánok. Köszönöm szépen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you for the nice introduction and for the kind invitation also. When choosing the topic of tonight's lecture, I ran into difficulties. There are so many meeting points in the Belgian and Hungarian history, therefore it was difficult to choose just one topic here. Finally, I chose the 16th and 17th centuries for three main reasons. I personally adore Mary of Habsburg, and I think Mary of Habsburg were highly important in the 16th century. Second, Bridge of Buda, which is a personal favorite of mine, and it may be considered as the symbol of the relationship between Belgium and Hungary. And finally, the economic and cultural relationship were especially highly active during these two centuries. Okay, well, starting. Sorry, I have a moment. Then, maybe a lot of people know the Buda Bridge in close to Vilvoorde, which you can see on the picture. It was inaugurated in 1955, and it was named after Buddha and the battle fought in Buda in the 17th centuries. Why was the bridge named Buda in the 17th century's Belgium? I think it's a logical question. To answer this question, we have to go back to the 16th centuries. when the relationship between Low Countries, which means Belgium, and that time, sorry, and the Hungarian kingdom were really strong and mutual, thanks to the Habsburg family, and I think thanks to the Mary of Habsburg also. After a short introduction, in which I would like to talk about the two countries and period, today's topic will start from Mechelen in Brussels, with the story of Princess Mary of Habsburg, who became the Queen of Hungary, and after her husband's death, the governors of Low Countries. First, I would like to introduce Buda, the city where Mary lived during when she was the Queen of Hungary, with the story of Princess Mary of Habsburg, who got married with Louis II, who did the relationship between Low Countries and Hungary remain active her departure. That's also an interesting question. And what type of economical connection were there between the two countries in the upcoming decades? Finally, I would like to conclude my talk with the Battle of 1686, which sheds the light, the original of the name of the Buda Bridge. Then. First of all, I would like to describe the period, and by using maps and the family tree. This is the first map which I would like to use. Represent the Kingdom of Hungary. The use of maps is incredibly important because the borders of the two countries change a lot in the past centuries. In the 16th century, Belgium did not exist in its current form, and the Hungarian kingdom did not resemble geographically the present-day Hungary. As you can see on the map, that was medieval and after the Hungarian kingdom's borders. In 1000, the Kingdom of Hungary was formed, and during this period, kings were from different royal families. Hungary had sought noble metal means, and agricultural production was significant. The Buda Castle became one of the most prominent palaces of Hungary and Europe in the 14th and 17th centuries. During this period, Buda became the head square of the main city of the Hungarian kings. Vladislav II of Hungary, we say in Hungarian második László, continues Matthias' heritage. However, his financials were affected by the expanding Ottoman Empire. When Vladislav II of Hungary died in 1560, his son inherited the throne. Louis, his son, was only 10 years old that time. Louis had to face the problem with the expanding Ottoman Empire. Before Vladislav II died, he managed to secure engagement of his son and the 11 years old Mary of Habsburg, who was from one of the most influential royal families in Europe at the time. And it will be really important for us today. There is another map when we can see Kingdom of Hungary and the Habsburg territory, which was the Holy Roman Empire, and the red part of, besides the Holy Roman Empire, that was Low Countries and the Burgundy, which was quite big, if you can see. And when I said the Low Countries, what was that? The present-day Belgium did not exist during the period I'm talking about. There were cities, for example, Antwerp and Ghent, you can see on the map, with autonomous rights and privileges. The unity between four scattered cities and fiefdom wasn't strong. These territories belonged to the Prince of Burgundy from the 15th centuries. We have other maps, but you can see the Burgundy also, the Burgundy territories and the Low Countries. Later, thanks to a successful marriage, these territories became under the rule of Habsburg. In the southern Low Countries, the mines and the metal produced were significant, while the cities in the northern regions were world famous for their textile produce. Prominent and rich citizens and nobles made their clothes from base made in Low Countries. And Antwerp was also a really important city because that became a significant harbor and commercial center. And Mechelen was the center of cultural and politics in the 16th centuries in the Low Countries. But have a reason why it was in Mechelen, the cultural center in Low Countries. This can be attributed to the fact that the governess of this territory, Princess Margaret, be at her court in Mechelen. You can see on the pictures the part of the building, which was Margaret of Austria or Princess Margaret Palace. Today is a museum, and you can see if you go to the Mechelen. Apart from being a governess, Margaret managed the education of her niece and nephew by establishing a school in her court of Mechelen. But why she did a school for her niece and nephew? It's time to take a look at the family tree, the Habsburg family tree. Maximilian I was a Holy Roman Empire ruler, and he married well with Mary of Burgundy, which means became a Holy Roman Empire Burgundy and Low Countries under one ruler. The couple had 2 children, Philip the Fair Habsburg and Margaret Austria or Margaret of Habsburg. Philip also had a good marriage because of Joanna Casti, and you can see her family also was really impressed and rich, because her mother was Isabella I of Castile and her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon. They were a couple who united the Spanish territories, and they were a couple who gave money to Christopher Colombo to go to discover a new route to the India, and we know what happened. He didn't find the route, but it was good to the Spanish territory. His mistake. Joanna and Philip were married, and after 2 unexpected deaths, because Isabella and John died in really young ages, Joanna had of the heir of the Spanish throne with her husband, which means the brother of Margaret, Philip, was heir of the Holy Roman Empire, and because of her wife, Joanna, for the Spanish throne also. That's really big. If we go back a bit, just here, you can see that means Holy Roman Empire, the Low Countries, Burgundy, Castile, and Aragon. That's a really big part of Europe. And this here also. Philip and Joanna could not pay enough attention to the education of their children, therefore Margaret was responsible for their education. This is how Mary of Habsburg stayed the court of Margaret. Mary at the time was only a couple of months old. She was educated together with her 2 sisters and 1 brother, Charles V. Mary stayed in Mechelen until 1550, when she traveled to Innsbruck, where her official engagement took place with Louise. One other family tree, when you see the Habsburg children, and the Jagiellos, which the Hungarians say the Jagiello család. You can see Mary of Hungary, or Mary of Habsburg at that time, was engaged with Louis II, and Mary's brother Ferdinand was engaged with Anna. Apart from the engagement between Louis and Mary, Anna and Ferdinand got engaged. This is the Ferdinand and Mary are siblings, just as Anna and Louis also are siblings. But in reality, Ferdinand and Mary never met because they were not in the same court. And Ferdinand wasn't present in person on the engagement. After the engagement, Louis went back to Hungary, but Mary stayed in the same court with Anna in Innsbruck until their official wedding. Two princes learned together for the next few years. Anna and Ferdinand got married in 1521, and the wedding ceremony lasted 3 days. That was a really big wedding. Mary also took part in the wedding, and this was the first time when she met with her brother, Ferdinand. After this wedding, Mary went to Hungary for her own wedding with Louis II. Mary didn't went alone. She was escorted with a staff of 90 people. Unfortunately, it is not documented who exactly were in Mary's escort during her arrival, but based on the written document, it is known that the mainly German-speaking and French-speaking members formed her escort. For example, we know the name of Mary governor in Innsbruck, Madame von Bayer. She and her family, her husband and sons, went to Hungary with Mary also. And two of her court ladies were Catherine von Poitiers and Maria Sarf. All of them had Flemish and Wallonian origins. We can find Wallonian people in Mary's household. For instance, the washing lady, Antoinette, was also Wallonian, and among the kitchen staff, and that's my favorite, my personal favorite staff, the chef of pâté was also from Low Countries. And the people stayed with her in the Hungarian kingdom. Few court ladies later went to marry to Hungarian nobles, and the connection stayed with the Low Countries and the Hungarian kingdoms. Stronger with that. Mary was welcomed by the Hungarian nobles and she arrived at Pozsony. However, the future husband, Louis II, was late due to recruitment problems that occurred in the southern border with the Ottoman Empire. But finally, they met each other again, and in 1522 the wedding ceremony was held, and Mary became the Queen of Hungary. There are pictures about Louis and Mary, not in the wedding time, maybe later, a few years later. And the other picture, the wedding dress of Mary and Louis, which you can see to the Budapest and the National Museum. That was the dress which were during the wedding ceremony. The head square of the royal family court was in Buda at that time. And I have few pictures about that also. A reconstruction picture, of course. This is the castle of Buda. As I mentioned in the introduction, the former King Sigismundus of Luxembourg, who had the title of King of Hungary and at the same time actually Emperor of the German Roman Empire, and the King Matthias Corvinus wanted to turn Buda into a modern castle, which also followed the Renaissance style that you can see on the castle. which means when Mary had arrived, lived there, the Buda castle was really impressed place. And here one other one. Mary had access to the second biggest library in the continent with a collect of maybe 3,000 books named Corvina Library. One could find books on philosophy, theology, history, even work on astronomy, which was favorite to the King Matthias, and Dante's Divina Commedia also was there. The father of Louis II donated several books, and the size of the collection slowly decreased, but still it was quite large compared to the other libraries in 1522. After the Battle of Mohács, Mary took some of the books with herself to the Low Countries, where governors voted by putting their hands in the Matthias Missal in the 18th centuries. That missal is today still in Belgium, actually in the Royal Library of Belgium. The vast majority of the books ended up in Suleiman's library, and future Sultan gave books from his collection to the guests visiting in Istanbul as a gift. And some picture about the Corvinas. At the court in Buda, there was an active cultural and social life during the reign of Mary and Louis. The young queen liked music, and she also played percussion and string instrument, while Louis played lute. Besides music, Mary also adored hunting, and the Hungarian territories were suitable for hunting. The Hungarian nobles did not like the royal couple's parties and also viewed negatively the royal couple's entertainment. However, the negative view was not triggered, or not just triggered by the royal family's life. Louis' politics, which aimed at creating a central power, may have also affected the negative attitude. Mary also supported Louis in creating his central power. Mary tried to protect her interest, and she was quite decisive in this protection. Although the marriage between Mary and Louis was pre-planned, their marriage proved to be a successful alliance for both countries. However, the 29th of August 1526 caused a big turn in Mary's life and in the Hungary's history. After the Battle of Mohács, the king also died in the escape, and the country was exposed to the Ottoman Suleiman. And the marriage between Mary and Louis was good, but they didn't have children, which means he had no direct heir to the throne. Mary left Buda as soon as she could, and she went to Pozsony. There was an intense fight for the throne of Hungary. There were more candidates, while one part of the country was occupied by the Ottomans. Mary supported her brother Ferdinand, who was the husband Louis II's sister Anna, in the fight for the Hungarian throne. And finally, Ferdinand was crowned in 1527. In the same year, John of Sapphire was also crowned in other part of the kingdom, and on the third part of the country was ruled by Ottomans. You can see on the maps. I didn't find just in Hungarian. The first one was the Hungarian kingdom, where was the king Ferdinand of Habsburg. The second one, the middle part, that was under rule by the Ottomans, and the third one, we call this Transylvania. There was another ruler, John of Sapphire. And Mary was facing new challenge. because in 1531 she appointed as a governess of the Low Countries by Charles V, his older brother. Therefore, Mary could return to Low Countries. Instead of Mechelen, Mary chose Brussels as the center, and she governed the territories from here. However, the relationship between the Hungarian territories did not end. First, she kept her terrains in the Hungarian territories, even if her brother Ferdinand opposed it. Since Mary was no longer the queen, she should have given back these territories to the wife of Ferdinand, who was Anna, she's sister-in-law. Mary had a significant income from the main cities in the northern territories where good quality metals were produced. In addition, she had income from the taxes paid by the cities, which helped her to finance the high expenses of the court in Brussels. The Hungarian metals, such as the ore and copper, were an expensive item in modern Europe and elsewhere. The ore was an especially good material for armor production. The stock exchange in Antwerp played an important role in the trade. However, the transport of these metals started from Portugal and Spain. In 1533, Bom Jesus, a Portuguese ship heading towards India, sank on the coast of Africa. The wreck of the ship and its cargo were found in 2008. Apart from the wonderful handcrafted produce, gold and silver coins, there were ore on the shipwreck. The ore ingots were from Besztercebánya, which belongs to the Hungarian kingdom at that time and belongs to Mary. But it's also important. At the time, the meaning was poems to fugars, therefore we can see the seal of the fugars on those ore ingots. The Augsburg-based Fugger family was in the Renaissance Europe wealthiest companies in the world at that time. You can see the stamps there, the Fugger stamps on the, maybe I think that's in copper. Mary also paid attention to maintaining her relationship with the Hungarian nobles who were loyal to her. For example, Miklós Olah, later Archbishop of Esztergom, was her secretary for many years here in Brussels. Mary had an active correspondence with Ferenc Batthyány. Ferenc's wife was also one of the court ladies in Mary's court, and she came from Austria. Mary continued wearing black clothes after the death of Louis, and she never got married again. Mary was the governess of the Low Countries until 1555. In her resignation letter, she wrote about how difficult it was for her to direct men. However, even if she felt that it was difficult, she proved to be a successful governess. After her departure, the relationship did not end, because although her personality was important, it was the family of the Habsburg which was the most important and which opened two countries towards each other. Thanks to these factors, the relationship continues to exist, even though the family of Habsburg was divided into two branches, the Austrian and the Spanish branch. In the Low Countries, the Spanish branch of the Habsburg gained power, while in the Hungarian territories, the Austrian branch ruled. However, the cultural relationship continued to exist. Transylvanian, which was independent, excelled in the 16th century in the centers of the region. The court of Vienna attached numerous scholars such as the science diplomat Buzbekus, who was an envoy in the court of the Sultan. He was named ambassador by Ferdinand I to the Ottoman Empire under the rule of Suleiman, of Magnificent. I think that was a really difficult job. He also wrote a diary during his travels in which Hungary was mentioned several times. He went a lot of time from Vienna to Istanbul, towards to Hungary. During one of his stays at the court of the Sultan, he received a plant as a gift. Uzbekis donated this plant to his friend, to Carlos Clusius, who was a famous botanist at that time. Clusius named the plant tulip, mistaken the Turkish word for the turban, which was often decorated with the flower. That tulips from Clusius' books. Clusius also created tulip garden in Leiden, but before moving to Leiden, Carlos Clusius was the guest for years of Boldizsár Batthyány in Hungary, and he really liked studying the Hungarian flora. And he also designed the garden of the Batthyány Count of Nagyszalóg. The famous philologist and philosopher Justus Lipsius had an impact on more generations of the Hungarian elite, and he was in correspondence with more members of the Hungarian elite. Peter's Révei books on the Holy Crown had a huge impact on Lipsius, which means it was a mutual intellectual relationship between the Hungarian elite, between Lipsius. The Flemish carpet had a huge demand in the Hungarian territories, and a lot of books came from the famous planting and Moreno printing place. There was a Hungarian author whose work was also with planting. You can see his picture there, his portrait. And today's museum stands in Antwerpen, where was the building to the painting company, and you can try there the old printing techniques. I think it's a really nice museum, and if you go with the children, it's also could be work. Márton Somogyi has a successful military career in Low Countries in the 17th centuries. It turned out from a recent study from Tibor Monastery. According to Tibor Monastery, Márton Somogyi is somewhere here in this Jan Bruegel picture, but it's not that picture. This is the picture. Where somewhere is Márton Somogyi, because he was a military leader and his soldiers there are, which means he have to need to there somewhere. Batthyány's family bought a painting from Peter Bruegel, the other, which they can be seen in the Budapest Museum of Fine Arts, and that was the earlier picture. This is the picture from the Peter Bruegel. During these times, the press informed the people what happened in Hungary, in Low Countries, be it an uprising or the war against the Ottoman, which means the interested stay with the Hungarians in Low Countries. And we are here in the siege of Buda. During these centuries, there were a lot of battles in Europe because it was the time to the 30-year War. After it, in 1863, the Ottoman troops started another siege against Vienna. However, the siege ended with failure, and there was a hope that the Ottomans could be sent out from Hungary and from Europe. Pope 11th Innocent urged an international association, and for this reason he made a lot of effort and supported it with a lot of money. His effort was followed by success, And 1 year later, the Holy League was created, which was an international association against the Ottoman Empire. The Holy League activated countries ruled by the Austrian and the Spanish Habsburgs. Later, Russian and German territories joined the Holy Leagues. The vast majority of the soldiers were from Austria, of course, Hungary, Germany, and Brandenburg. However, there were soldiers from many different parts of Europe. We can see among the leaders the Prince of Croy and many more nobles and military leaders from the Low Countries. And in the Low Countries started the forceful recruitment, which affected the Wallonian and the Flemish regions as well. The soldiers were usually added to the German troops. However, for example, Fürstenberg, who recruited soldiers around Liège, fought with his army in Buda. According to a book by Miklós Kun, we know four men died in 1865 from the village Villiers-le-Vieux, which had only 500 inhabitants at that time, which means for young men was a lot. And not just people came from Low Countries. One part of the weapons used in these wars were made in Dinan, Namur, Chimay. In 1686, the most important battle, the siege of Buda, took place. The battle lasted 2.5 months, and the castle of Buda was completely destroyed, and the number of casualties were extremely high. However, the Holy League could reoccupy the Buda castle, and it was ruled by the Catholics. It's a cannonball which was brought up just a few months ago from the river Danube. It's almost 70 kilo, and it was used during the siege of Buda. Although after the great success of the Buda siege the war did not end. There were many celebrations all over Europe. There was even a firework display in Brussels to celebrate this occasion. In the Low Countries, several rooms, inns, was named after Buda, remembering the battle. And this is the point when I would like to go back to the name of the Buda Bridge. There was an inn close to the border of Vilvoorde, which had the name Buda. Today we can see here the Buda Bridge. When the bridge was built in 1955 in order to reconstruct the former bridge, it was remembered after the victory at Buda and after that inn, actually. And if someone cycling along the canal, you can see the sign in which they remember about the victory in 1686. However, one cannot read about that fact that in 1930s and later the douche factory, which was built this bridge, has several Hungarian workers. However, this is another study about the Belgian and Hungarian connection, and it's not that era which I was choose. Therefore, I would like to finish here, and thank you for the attention.